Sometimes the best edit decision is to not edit at all, but to hold on the clip and let the shot just play out. For example, it might be best to allow the essential action of the scene to breathe a little. In this shot from the classic horror film Fiend Without a Face, this guy is delivering the horrible news of a gruesome death, and before he even finishes what he's saying, the editor starts fading away. The suddenness of the edit completely diminishes the power of his words. The edit tells us that this isn't really that big of a deal as it sweeps us away to another place. So make sure moments are allowed to be set up and are allowed to breathe a little afterwards to allow audiences to feel their impact. Holding on shots can be great for really connecting us to what a character is experiencing. In this legendary sequence from Hitchcock's Rear Window, Jimmy Stewart's character is in a wheelchair with a broken leg. He's trying to solve a murder and suspects that the murderer knows who he is and where he is. As we hold on these shots for what seems like an eternity, his anxiety creates so much tension in us as the spectators. Cutting a lot here would make it feel like we're just kind of watching a story. But by holding so long, it's like we're in this story as well and having a much more potent and connected experience. Holding on shots can also help the situation feel more real. One of my favorite examples of this has got to be this scene from the classic silent film The General. Here, Buster Keaton puts himself in real, actual mortal danger to pull off this stunt. The lack of edits proves to the audience that there were no tricks here. He really did jump off of a moving train. He wrestled with the log and got back on. And as if that wasn't cool enough, again, without an edit, Buster pulls off one of the coolest moves in cinema history. This feels impressive and clever and dangerous, all because we didn't cut away from the action. Also, please note that I'm not here advocating that you go jumping off moving trains. We're just talking about editing concepts. When we hold on shots, it gives the opportunity for the audience to really take things in. That's powerful because it lets the audience come to their own realizations, which is a very pleasant sensation when you're watching a film. Like in Signs, Mel Gibson's character thinks that there might be an alien trapped in the kitchen, so he uses the reflection of a knife to see if something is there. After just a few seconds of looking, he's determined he's had enough and begins to walk away. We know that he's afraid and just doesn't want to know. As he stops and pauses, it makes us feel insightful because we know what he's wrestling with to truly know what's in that kitchen. By holding on shots and taking things in, the audience begins to focus closely on everything in the shot. Here in Halloween, we think things are over and we feel safe because we can see the bad guy, presumably dead in the background. But we still just hang on this shot, which makes moments like this extra potent. And sometimes hanging on a long shot enough can force viewers to think deeply about elements in a shot. This is a bit of a spoiler for the film Gravity, so heads up for that. But at the end of Gravity, after floating in space and being helpless for the entire film, we finally see Sandra Bullock's character on Earth. As we stay on this shot, for me, I experienced a little bit of boredom, to be honest. I mean, it's not a particularly beautiful landscape. Nothing is really happening in terms of her character. But then, because we were hanging so long on this shot, I got past the boredom and started pondering what this mundane scene must have meant to her. For her to no longer worry about breathing, for her to be able to control how she moves through space, for her to be able to rest on something solid and stable. That was a powerful moment for me as a film goer, and I wouldn't have got to that moment without the editor forcing me to stare at and reevaluate this scene. Not cutting can also be a powerful way to create tension in the audience, regardless of the genre, as we force the audience to wait for the cut. In this scene in Sinister, Ethan Hawke wakes up in the middle of the night thinking there's an intruder, but instead he just finds this projector turned on and playing something. Look at his face. I mean, he's in shock by what he sees, but the editor doesn't let us see it right away. That is so awesome. Now, this moment isn't scary in the sense that he's in danger. He's not afraid, so neither are we. But what he's looking at is terrifying to him. So not being able to see it just fills us as the audience with dread. I mean, we want to see what he's looking at, but also at the same time, we really, really don't. So the bottom line in these last couple movies and the few to follow is that there aren't any real hard and fast rules as to when to cut or when not to cut. But it's important to be aware of what you're showing the audience. They are trusting you. If you were to take those shots from Gravity and put them in a comedy where there's not really a payoff for staying on that shot for so long, the audience would stop trusting you. Next, we'll look at another reason not to cut, because it's better to use a transition instead. So we'll talk about that next.